on the campus of UCLA right now. It looks like it's a beautiful, normal college campus, people going to school, people coming to and from class. But 6 months ago, where we are right now, these lawns were a hotbed of hate and anti-Semitism. University encampments, pro-Palestine, anti-Israel. We all saw the footage. Eli Tsives, you had a direct encounter with these protests. Tell us about what it was like when you were here as a student and some of the incidents that happened when you tried to do simple things like get to class.
Yeah, so the encampment was a shocking experience here at UCLA. There were encampments happening all over the country. UCLA was one of the last encampments that actually spawned. Columbia, I believe, was first 2 weeks before. I knew the encampment was going to happen. I knew because, you know, it was going big college campus to college campus, and when it erupted at UCLA, when it was erected, shall we say, I called my friends and I said, you know, let's go counter-protest. But they all said, no, we shouldn't. It's dangerous. It's not safe.
Were the people doing the encampment, were they students or were they from outside the campus?
Both.
Both.
The people that started the encampment towards the beginning, the people that were actually here were mainly this area right here started. Yeah. It was small at first, this area and that grass field. The encampment at first was very, it wasn't large at all. Anyone could pretty much hop in and hop out. They didn't have big barricades. Yeah. So when I went there, I actually stood right up there by that fountain, held an Israeli flag facing this area.
Free speech, right? Counter-protest.
Free speech.
What was the reaction to that?
The reaction was there was a person who claimed to be a professor who was standing up there with me, and she started arguing with me. We later found out she was not a professor.
Not a professor. What a surprise.
She was a TA. I know, what a surprise. Yeah. She was a TA, but claimed to be a professor. Yeah. Started arguing with me, and she lost. How can I say? I schooled her in the argument. She became hysterical, started crying, and that was viral. That went viral. News channels started picking it up. Headlines: UCLA student schools professor.
But that wasn't the only incident.
No, that was the first incident.
That was the first incident.
Not the biggest incident.
You were also blocked from entering one of the buildings here on campus just because you're a student who believes something different to the whole Palestine narrative.
Absolutely. So the encampment started on Thursday. It went on until the next week, Wednesday. On Monday, they pretty much stretched out 100 meters that way and 100 meters that way.
And the university is doing nothing about this.
They did not do anything productive about it. They put up metal barricades to force the encampment to not expand. All the students that were participating inside the encampment, they just lifted the metal barricades and expanded it themselves. In fact, I would say the metal barricades were part of the problem. It made it more difficult for when the police came to remove the encampment. Nevertheless, that being said, I was over there and I was walking to class. It was my normal path to class that I take every single day, and this time I see they expanded and they're there with their vests and with their keffiyehs, wrapping their face, concealing their identity.
It's a little ironic, I gotta say, you know, given what the normal line of protest is about Israel, that they're expanding their territories like this. You know?
It's definitely ironic. It's definitely ironic. They claim that, you know, the Zionist movement is a movement of colonialization when they don't realize that it's the biggest story and the greatest story of decolonization.
Of course, but I mean, you're stopped from going into a building, even though you're a student, you have ID, just because what? Because
I'm a Jew.
Because you're pro-Israeli?
Because I'm a Jew and I'm a Zionist.
Anti-Semitic.
The clearest form of anti-Semitism that you could see. In fact, we can directly correlate that moment to what Jews experienced in 1933 when they were blocked out, not by the law, but by Hitler Youth, who took it into their own hands to block out Jewish students from universities. And look what happened.
But here's what I don't get, Eli. This university, all the universities, every university I know in the United States, they are crazy about the microaggressions. They're crazy about discrimination. You know, if you say anything wrong about somebody, even in the slightest sort of way of any other minority, they come down on you like a ton of bricks. Where were they for you?
They weren't. That's the thing. Imagine if a bunch of people came to campus wearing white cones on their heads.
This is what I'm saying, yeah.
They wouldn't even make it onto campus. They would have been immediately arrested and sent off, even though theoretically they would have the right to be here because freedom of speech. But the fact that the fact that you have SJP that comes onto campus and says the horrific, that Students for Justice for Palestine says the horrific garbage that comes out of their mouth about Jews and Zionists and about Israel, and the fact that they're not only do they get away with it, but they are applauded by faculty.
So what are the faculty like in class? Did you get blowback in class? What happened in class?
In class.
I mean, you're paying for this education. The California taxpayer is paying for your education. What are you getting in class on this stuff?
Personally, I have yet to encounter backlash from my own teachers in TA, even though I'm very outwardly Jewish. People know who I am around campus. I wear my Magen David necklace, I wear my jacket, my shoes, but I know many of my friends have experienced horrific accounts of anti-Semitism inside the classroom, teachers discriminating them, and of course the TA will pretend like, oh no, I'm giving you a bad grade because your essay was written poorly, but we all know that the TA is registered with Students Justice for Palestine.
Of course.
It's not hard to make that correlation.
And so, I mean, just, on this whole thing, too, because there's this whole decolonized movement you hear about, and it feels to me like this really isn't just about, Jewish people and Israel. It feels like it's really about Western civilization. It feels like the bigger fight here is, you go against Judaism, you're actually going against this whole Western set of ideals, so many of which came from that sort of Judaic history and Judeo-Christian heritage. Is that part of, do you think, the broader anti-Western sentiment on campus, this anti-Zionist push?
Absolutely. I mean, this country, America, was built on Judeo-Christian values, right? We know this, and we've noticed that SJP and a lot of these, I don't even like to call them pro-Palestine because they're pro-Hamas is what they really are. These pro-Hamas protesters want to see the destruction of Western civilization. I mean, they advocate it. They call the U.S. government the devil, which is ironic because if anything, it would be the Biden administration that is the most for having a two-state solution and encouraging peace with these people, but these people don't care. They couldn't care at all.
So what are your hopes? We got the election coming up. What are your hopes for the election?
I mean, my hope is that, whoever is elected will continue being a strong ally towards Israel. I think America and Israel are, inseparable. Israel is America's strongest ally in the Middle East. America is Israel's strongest ally in general. I just hope that whoever is elected remembers that and doesn't forget.